Tokiyuki is a young boy who is destined to inherit the title of the shogunate and the responsibilities that come with it. However, since the only thing he is good at is running away from his problems, he lives his life as an irresponsible loser. On this particular day, Tokiyuki is doing everything he can to escape his attendants so he won't have to do his training, and he may be quick, but if these guys get tricked by Tokiyuki simply ducking, they might not be cut out for watching him. Tokiyuki does his best to evade them, but eventually he is forced to practice anyway. However, while the attendants aren't looking, he slips away and climbs onto the roof for fun. The attendants frantically chase after him to stop him from getting hurt, but all the commotion is starting to annoy the officials since they are in the middle of the send-off party for Takagi. The attendants lose sight of Tokiyuki, and he takes great pleasure in hiding from them between the horses, but he ends up getting caught by Takagi. Takagi compliments Tokiyuki for being so good at hide and seek, but he reminds him that this isn't the time for games. It's about to be deployed to war, and he hopes to prove his allegiance to Tokiyuki and his family by bringing them victory. Tokiyuki responds by wishing Takagi luck on his mission, and after that, Takagi gets up to leave with his friend who seems to have resting bitch face. Once they are gone, Kyoko shows up behind Tokiyuki and tells him that he doesn't need to be so nervous around Takagi and the others since he is the heir to the shogunate, so eventually he will be the one giving them orders. And as a bonus, he will get to marry her. But Tokiyuki doesn't remember ever proposing. Just then, Tokiyuki notices that the attendants have caught up to him, so Tokiyuki dashes off so fast that he manages to kick up dust on a wooden floor. Kyoko's attendant can't believe how immature Tokiyuki is, as even though he is technically a samurai, he is nothing like Takagi, and if he ends up inheriting the shogunate, he will probably end up becoming a puppet leader that can barely finish 3 sentences on his own like his father. Kyoko doesn't see anything wrong with being a puppet ruler since he would still get to live a lavish lifestyle, and that makes him a prime candidate for her to marry since she's a certified gold digger. Meanwhile, the attendants can't find Tokiyuki since he's a master at hiding once he gets serious. In fact, he's so committed to skipping training that he once hid inside an armor chest for 2 straight days, and yes, it would have been easier to do the 2 hours of training, but he was proving a point. The attendants check the chest just to make sure he's not hiding in there again, but since they don't find him, they leave to go search elsewhere. However, they fail to notice that Tokiyuki was hanging from the roof above them, so once they are gone, Tokiyuki makes his way down and is greeted by his elder brother who offers him a snack. They both climb up onto the roof to talk for a bit, and Tokiyuki's brother tells him that their father is pretty much useless, so it's for the best if he takes over as shogunate as soon as possible. Tokiyuki asks why his brother can't do it instead since he's the eldest son, but as per customs, since he is the son of a concubine, he can't inherit the position. And besides, he doesn't want to anyway. Just then, the attendants spot Tokiyuki and try to corner him so he has nowhere to run, but Tokiyuki goes, "Hold my dog," before running down the roof and jumping all the way to the adjacent one. He then runs through the compound and out into the Kamakura village where everyone is glad to see him. Tokiyuki eventually loses his attendants again, so he makes his way to a lone cherry blossom tree where he can see the entire village. He loves the village and its people, so he doesn't care about honor or status as long as he is able to live in peace here. People can call him a lazy coward for all he cares because he's fine with it, but all of a sudden, a girl on the ground speaks up and tells Tokiyuki that he's not lazy, nor is he a coward. Those are just small aspects of the monster that lay dormant inside him, or at least, that's what her father says. Tokiyuki is confused by the girl's sudden appearance, but then this dude pops out of nowhere and starts introducing himself. He's a Shinto priest named Yorishite Suwa, and he has been sitting in this tree all day because he predicted that Tokiyuki would show up here, eventually. Suwa seems like he's a little crazy, but he turns the crazy down a bit and tells Tokiyuki that he came to pray for the village, and since he is done, he will be heading to the shogunate to make his report. The girl with him is named Shizuku, and she is good with the secret arts, so he brings her along with him as an unpaid assistant. Tokiyuki is still suspicious of Suwa since no one knows that he likes to come to this tree, so Shizuku explains to him that her father seriously has the ability to see into the future, although his prayers are pretty much a scam. Suwa tells Shizuku that she didn't have to say his prayers were a scam, but to prove his ability to see into the future, he stares into Tokiyuki's soul and sees that in 2 years, Tokiyuki will become a hero who shakes the very foundation of Japan. Some people will worship him, and many others will fear him so much that he will change the fate of the entire country. Tokiyuki doesn't believe any of what Suwa just said, so he runs off since he's not paid enough to deal with strange men like him. He heads back home and tells his brother all about what Suwa said, but he doesn't think it's too far-fetched since Tokiyuki has a superhuman talent for evasion. He personally believes that Tokiyuki would become a hero if a tragedy were to occur. And unfortunately, A tragedy was right around the corner for them, as when Takagi was leading his army into battle, he suddenly turns on them and sliced his companion so fast that it took physics a couple seconds to catch up. Word of Takagi's betrayal reaches Kamakura, and the officials can't believe what they are hearing. Not only has Takagi been secretly conspiring with Emperor Godaigo, he has also wiped out the army that was sent with him, and is on his way here to wipe them out as well. Before long, everyone who Tokiyuki cared about has been slain, and Takagi stands amidst the carnage in sheer ecstasy, because this brings him closer to the voice that guides him to become the ruler above all. As Tokiyuki watches his clan's corpses burn, he hears a familiar voice calling out to him. Suwa says he is here because his father wanted to make sure Tokiyuki would be able to survive. He predicted this tragedy, so he took precautionary measures and already has horses waiting past the hills so they can escape. However, Tokiyuki says he doesn't want to be saved since all of his people are dead, so he just wants to end his life alongside his father and clan. Suwa says he won't allow it since Tokiyuki's life is far too important. But to be honest, Suwa isn't sure if Tokiyuki's survival will actually change anything or not. Kamakura lies in ruin, and Tokiyuki still finds it hard to believe that it's all because of Takagi. They have known each other since Tokiyuki was a toddler, but he now knows that the smile on Takagi's face must have been a lie. Suwa offers to help Tokiyuki get his revenge, but Tokiyuki knows Suwa's smile must be fake as well. And in any case, he doesn't believe he can get revenge against someone like Takagi who destroyed Kamakura so quickly. Regardless of how heinous his acts are, history will inevitably remember him as a hero. So Tokiyuki just wants to die honorably like the rest of his family. Suwa says, "Alright, bet," and then pushes Tokiyuki off the cliffs so he can die as he wanted to. And as Tokiyuki falls to his impending doom, he has a sudden realization that death actually doesn't sound so good anymore, so he grips onto the side of the cliff and uses it to slow his descent and land safely. Upon seeing him, the invading army immediately attempts to kill Tokiyuki, but Tokiyuki's evasion skills are far too great for any of them to even touch him. Tokiyuki makes his way back to the top of the cliff and latches onto Suwa, who then tells him that his ability to survive and run away is what gives him the potential to become a hero, so he is the opposite of Takagi, who became a hero by killing. Of course, it's not possible to win by only running and hiding, which is why Suwa will provide him with all the allies and tools he will need to reach his goal. As long as Tokiyuki is still alive, Takagi will someday come for him. So before then, Tokiyuki needs to become strong enough to defeat him. While Kamakura was being destroyed, Tokiyuki's brother, Kumitoki, was desperately trying to hide from the invaders. But all of a sudden, a man shows up in his hiding spot. However, he is relieved when he sees that it is Munashige, his uncle. He says he came here to rescue Kunitoki, but Kunitoki is still really worried about Tokiyuki. So Munashige reassures him that Tokiyuki is probably safe since they arranged for Suwa to get him to safety. But right now, they need to get themselves to safety before they get spotted. Unfortunately, they get spotted sooner than expected, but Munashige tells Kunitoki that he will handle this, so he should stay here while he goes over to the samurai to talk things out. He says he might be able to convince them that Kunitoki isn't part of the Hojo family since he's not important enough for them to recognize. He makes it clear that was entrusted with protecting Kunitoki, and more importantly, he is the son of his dear sister. So he's going to do everything in his power to make sure he escapes alive, even if he has to lay down his own life. As he approaches the samurai, he tells Kunitoki to run away if things go wrong, but as soon as he starts talking to the samurai, Kunitoki sees Munashige pointing straight at him, and the wicked look on his face means things aren't looking good for Kunitoki. Meanwhile, Tokiyuki is having a nightmare where he sees the tortured faces of his family, and worse yet, he sees an even more terrifying sight: Suwa's face. Suwa is standing over Tokiyuki with his dazzling aura, and he comments on how cute Tokiyuki is while he's asleep. Shizuku comes over, and while she knows how much her uncle loves watching children sleep, Suwa is clearly making Tokiyuki's nightmare worse than it already was. However, Suwa doesn't care and decides to give Tokiyuki a harmless kiss on the cheek, earning him a place on the FBI watch list. Tokiyuki senses some criminal activity about to take place, so when he wakes up and spots Suwa about to kiss him, he jumps out of bed and climbs all the way up to the ceiling in fear. Suwa says he expected as much from Tokiyuki and his escape skills, but when asked to explain himself for trying to kiss Tokiyuki, he responds with, "It's just a prank, bro." Tokiyuki tells him this is no time for pranks since they are still in grave danger. Suwa had said they would be able to hide out in his territory, but they've been stuck in Kamakura for a couple of days now, and they could be discovered any minute now. Suwa says the reason they haven't left yet is because the exit of Kamakura is more tightly guarded than he had thought, so they have to exercise patience until the patrols die down. Tokiyuki recognizes the banners of the patrol, but the samurai under those banners are all people who had previously sworn their allegiance to the shogunate, but ended up betraying their oath and assisting in the destruction of Kamakura, and all of it was done under the orders of Takagi. It is still difficult for him to believe that during all that time Takagi spent with him, he was plotting such traitorous plans. Shizuku tells Tokiyuki that he doesn't have to worry about their safety for now, since if the peril comes to search their hut, then they can easily fool them since their clothes make them all look like priests. Tokiyuki calms down a bit and lets go of the roof, but there's something he would like to ask Suwa. Earlier, Suwa had said something about reclaiming the country with his excellent ability to run away, but samurai are meant to fight while looking straight forward, so he has no idea how he's going to reclaim the country while running away. He wants to know if Suwa truly believes that he can defeat Takagi and avenge everyone that he loved, and Suwa is overwhelmingly positive about it. There is no doubt in his mind that Tokiyuki will become a legendary hero because he foresaw it with his divine eyes. So for now, he asks Tokiyuki to please bear with him until his prophecy becomes a reality. However, until then, he suggests they play a game of dice to pass the time, but while Shizuku and Suwa are busy setting up the game, Tokiyuki runs away. He doesn't think he can trust them if they are so relaxed that they can play a board game, so he decides to take matters into his own hands and find what remains of his home by himself. As he arrives at the scorched remains of the Shogunate Palace, Tokiyuki begins looking around to see if he can find anyone alive, but that's when he hears the voices of two men complaining that all the good stuff around here had already been looted. He realizes it would be bad if he was spotted here, so he starts looking for a good place to hide. But then he hears one of the men talking about an execution that happened this morning involving Kunitoki, and he can't stop himself from yelling that they are lying. He refuses to believe that his brother is dead, but he soon realizes that he messed up, since if these guys figure out that he is the son of the former shogunate, they'll rat him out. The men start asking Tokiyuki who he is, and he doesn't know what to say in this situation, but luckily Suwa and Shizuku show up just in time to cover for him by saying he is just an apprentice at their shrine. They say the shogunate had shown favor to them, and this boy happened to be really close with Kunitoki, which is why he thinks of him as a brother. Tokiyuki goes along with the story and asks the men if they can let him know what happened to Kunitoki, so they tell him that after the destruction of Kamakura, Kunitoki was entrusted to his uncle Munashige to get him to safety, but without a second thought, the man sold his own nephew out the first chance he got, all in hopes of securing a position of power for himself, and he seemed awfully proud about it too. After Kunitoki was captured, since he was a member of the Hojo clan, he was sentenced to death by beheading and was executed this morning. Upon hearing this news, Tokiyuki feels sick to his stomach and keeps muttering the words betrayal to himself. He can't make sense of why the Ashikagi family who had served them for generations would betray them, why their samurai retainers who had been faithful for years suddenly turned their back on them, and now even his uncle has betrayed them. It seems there's no one in the world whom Tokiyuki can trust, and despair is starting to get to him, but he is distracted by the blinding light of Suwa's aura. He tells Tokiyuki that he can see a part of Munashi's future, even if it's really low resolution. In his vision, Munashige is surrounded by a lot of enemy soldiers, but he is well protected. Tokiyuki asks to know where his uncle is right now, so since he is so curious, Suwa agrees to show him. It turns out that he didn't end up getting the position of power he was hoping for, since he basically ended up being reduced to a mere beggar. Munashige complains that he didn't get much of a reward for ratting Kunitoki out, but that may be because Kunitoki was an illegitimate child, so Munashige assumes that he will get treated a lot better if he managed to capture the legitimate child of the shogunate, so he has already begun making plans to capture Tokiyuki and sell him out to the Nida army. At least now, Tokiyuki knows what his first enemy looks like, and that the first step in Suwa's plan win by running away. He says he will explain the next step once they get back to the hideout, but Tokiyuki isn't feeling too confident about the situation, especially considering the fact that he neglected his martial arts training so much, but Suwa assures him that there's no need to worry about it, as he has some allies on their way who will be able to help Tokiyuki. However, these same allies are busy playing Suwa's version of Monopoly, so Tokiyuki can't help but doubt how helpful they will be. After everyone is done with the game, the two allies finally introduce themselves to Tokiyuki and say their names are Kojiro and Ayako. They are the children of the Nezu and Machizuki families respectively, and both families serve the Suwa family, which by extension means they serve the Hojo family that Tokiyuki belongs to as well. Although both of them are the same age as Tokiyuki, they excel at martial arts, so Suwa encourages Tokiyuki to rely on them to help him get his revenge. A while later, Shizuku asks Kojiro and Ayako what they think of Tokiyuki, and Ayako says she thinks he is really cute, but Kojiro thinks he is pretty weak, so he finds it strange that Suwa asked them to help Tokiyuki. But since Tokiyuki can't fight for himself, they'll just have to protect him then. As night falls, Suwa tells Tokiyuki that it is time to face the demon that's after them, so he hands him a katana to use in battle. At the same time, Shizuku realizes that Munashige is in his way, so everyone gets into position and waits for his arrival. As Munashige shows up, he begins acting like he has been worried about Tokiyuki, and Tokiyuki plays along with it to lure him in for a sneak attack. Munashige asks if Tokiyuki is alone and says they should run away together for Tokiyuki's safety, but now that he is within range, Tokiyuki gives the signal for Kojiro and Ayako to attack. Unfortunately, there was enough time for Munashige to pull out his sword and block their attack, and he now realizes that Tokiyuki planned this ambush to avenge his brother. He didn't expect Tokiyuki to be smart enough to pull something like this off, but there's one thing their plan failed to account for. The reason Kunitoki was entrusted to him wasn't just because he was his uncle, he was appointed as his guard because he is strong. All he needs to do now is kill 2 random brats and chop off Tokiyuki's legs so it can't run away anymore, and once he has done that, he will be able to live the good life. Tokiyuki draws his sword to defend himself, but Munashige is much stronger than him, so he ends up getting blown back. Munashige mocks Tokiyuki for being too weak to avenge his brother by himself, but as he is charging at him, Kojiro jumps in to defend Tokiyuki. However, he too is inferior to Munashige's power. Ayako jumps in next, and she holds her ground for a couple of seconds at first, but then she gets overpowered and flung away. Even with the combined strength of Ayako and Kojiro, they are still gravely outmatched since none of them have got puberty yet, but they are up against a grown man. Munashige breaks away from Kojiro and Ayako so he can go after Tokiyuki again, and as he does so, he talks about how he prides himself on his ability to adapt to whatever situation he is put in. He would gladly murder a child if it was for his survival, just like he did with Kunitoki. He pushed him to the ground and mercilessly beat him till he was half dead so he could sell him out for his freedom, but now he is after Tokiyuki so he can gain some amount of favor with the Nida army. Munashige has backed Tokiyuki up against a cliff, but before Kojiro and Ayako can rush to his aid, Suwa calls out to them and says it's time for them to retreat. They don't understand why Suwa is telling them to retreat, but he just says they should sit back and watch Tokiyuki work his magic, because if anyone here can boast of adaptability, it's him. As Munashige is swinging his sword at Tokiyuki, Tokiyuki begins analyzing his movements and predicting his strikes before they happen. So no matter what Munashige does, he is always one step behind Tokiyuki, and it looks like Tokiyuki is enjoying it too. The way he dodges isn't something that can be learned through training, as it's more like a heaven-sent gift. Suwa believes that Tokiyuki isn't a coward, he just genuinely enjoys being chased. In a situation like this, one mistake could mean instant death, but Tokiyuki's very soul finds joy in such a crisis. During the times when Kamakura was peaceful, Tokiyuki would spend his time dodging his responsibilities, but on the battlefield he becomes an untouchable monster, thriving on near-death evasions. Suwa asks the others if they are interested in serving a master like Tokiyuki now, and Kojiro's opinion has changed for the better. Although, Ayako still just wants to be his friend. They get ready to rejoin the fight, but as they go, Suwa advises them not to waste their effort protecting Tokiyuki. They should just trust that he will be able to evade all danger, but Tokiyuki's attacks are still very weak, so they'll have to make up for that. Munashige is starting to lose his composure since he can't land a hit on Tokiyuki, and that leaves him open for the others to attack. He ends up getting disarmed, but he uses some dirt as a distraction to get away from them. Since they don't need to protect Tokiyuki, they focus their efforts solely on creating an opening for him to strike. So while Munashige is charging at Tokiyuki, Ayako comes up behind him and kicks him to the ground. Munashige then switches targets and tries to use his sword to finish her off, but before Ayako gets slashed, Kojiro disarms Munashige by throwing his sword and knocking him to the ground. And now that Munashige has been disarmed and disoriented, Tokiyuki leaps into the air to deliver the final blow. Munashige's life alone will not be enough to avenge Kunitoki and all the others who were killed in Kamakura, but it's a good start on his quest for revenge. After that, the group makes their way through the forest to get out of Kamakura, and along the way Suwa asks Tokiyuki how it feels now that he's had his first victorious battle. Tokiyuki doesn't really know how to feel about it since he was just focused on running away, and before he knew it, he had already claimed Munashige's head. He knows he couldn't have done it alone, so he faces the others and sincerely thanks them for their help. Suwa takes the opportunity to remind Tokiyuki that he needs 2 things in order to win a war by running away. First, he needs to be a valuable leader to his team, thereby making him a top priority to the enemy, and the second condition is to have allies that can act as his weapon. To fulfill these 2 conditions, Tokiyuki must maintain his pride as a Hojo orphan and become someone that people are drawn to. If he can do those 2 things, and Suwa genuinely believes that Tokiyuki will be able to defeat any demon that comes his way. Tokiyuki says he understands and walks to the edge of the cliff, where he swears that he will someday return to Kamakura to reclaim it from Takagi. He then throws his sword into the forest, and Suwa thinks is a very touching display of commitment, but he recalls seeing a vision that something terrible would happen if Tokiyuki threw his sword from the top of that cliff. Just then, a wolf emerges from the forest with Tokiyuki's sword stabbed in its back, and it's pretty pissed at him, so Tokiyuki makes a run for the hills in record time. They manage to successfully escape Kamakura together, and Tokiyuki begins his journey to becoming the greatest hero in Japan. But once they're in Suwa's territory, Tokiyuki is pushed to his wits' end with Suwa. Shortly after arriving, Tokiyuki became overwhelmed by the sheer number of maidens Suwa had assigned to him. But Suwa innocently says he just asked them to look after Tokiyuki, make him breakfast, and give him some special physical contact to make him feel better. But it was too much for Tokiyuki to handle, so he tried to run away. However, his attempts to flee led him to fall into this random hole, and it's because Suwa foresaw the future, where Tokiyuki would be running away from the girls along this road, so he dug a hole ahead of time to trap him. Tokiyuki still doesn't believe that Suwa can really see into the future, but Suwa says that since this place is full of holy energy, his divine visions get a huge boost, meaning no matter how hard Tokiyuki tries to run or hide, Suwa will know exactly where he is. After all, this is his expanded domain, the Suwa Grand Shrine. And now that he has explained things, it's time for Tokiyuki to begin his training arc. Tokiyuki still hates training, so he tries to make an excuse that he is still getting used to his new life here. But Suwa doesn't care, so Tokiyuki tries running away. Unfortunately, within Suwa's domain, all escape attempts are nullified by Suwa's foresight. Suwa gloats to Tokiyuki over him falling for another one of his traps, but Tokiyuki just wants to be let out, so Shizuku comes over and brings him a ladder. She apologizes for her father's behavior, as she knows all too well how annoying he can be, but she assures Tokiyuki that Suwa is harmless most of the time. As Tokiyuki climbs out of the hole, he thinks about how he should feel grateful to Suwa for saving his life, but he finds it hard to believe that Suwa actually knows what he is doing. Suwa's shrine is relatively small as well compared to the others, so he doubts Suwa actually has the means to help him reclaim Kamakura and defeat Takagi when the time comes, so he sees no point in practicing. Several days later, Suwa still hasn't gotten Tokiyuki to take his practice seriously, and everyone has gotten tired of digging holes to catch him, so they start complaining that Tokiyuki behaves like a spoiled brat. Suwa corrects them and says that Tokiyuki is actually an earnest person at heart, but he was raised to be a puppet ruler, so he has never had any real reason to put effort into improving himself. And the fault for his current behavior partially lies with Suwa, since he is just now realizing that he hasn't done anything to show Tokiyuki that he has the power to help him reclaim Kamakura. On this particular day, Tokiyuki has run into the forest since no one would expect him to leave on a rainy day, but it turns out he was wrong about that as Suwa shows up right behind him moments later. He already knows what Suwa is going to ask him to do, so he tells him that he doesn't see the reason why he should bother learning things like strategies of war when all he is going to be doing is running away on the battlefield even if Suwa's army is getting slain. Suwa promises Tokiyuki that there is no way that he can lose because he is a true god, and to prove it to him, he says he will stop the rain. Tokiyuki still doesn't believe anything Suwa is saying, but as Suwa rings his bell in the rain, it looks like he wasn't lying because all the raindrops stop midair and converge around Suwa before disappearing entirely. After that, Suwa calls on his soldiers with Spartan energy, showing Tokiyuki that he has an army of soldiers 10,000 strong who are ready to assemble at any moment. If Tokiyuki were to gain the qualities of a hero, that would mean there is an alliance between a hero and a god, and many more soldiers are sure to join their cause at that point. Having demonstrated his power, Suwa asks Tokiyuki what he plans to do now, and Tokiyuki reluctantly says he is willing to go back to his desk and start studying. He has decided to trust Suwa since he now believes he can become a hero with his help. However, as soon as Tokiyuki has said these words, Suwa tells everyone that they are free to go home now. Tokiyuki can't believe what he's seeing and asks Suwa where all that Spartan energy went, but Suwa just says his people can't be so energetic all the time. He then changes the topic and tells Tokiyuki that it's time to go study, whether he likes it or not. But as he is driving him off, he accidentally falls for one of his own traps. A while later, Tokiyuki has started getting used to life in Suwa's domain, so Suwa tells him it's time for him to acquire some retainers. A retainer is a vassal who forms a master-servant relationship with their lord and risks their life fighting for him. A ruler is nothing without his retainers, but since Tokiyuki tragically lost all of his family members and retainers, he has to start from nothing, so Suwa will introduce the candidates once more. First is Kojiro, the greatest swordsman of Tokiyuki's generation, and with his skill, he would be perfect for leading as Tokiyuki's military commander. Next is Ayaka with her unrivaled strength and artistic talent, plus even when in battle she remains as cheery as ever. Finally, we have Shizuku, who is attentive and well-versed in several secret arts, so as a servant, she would be great at taking care of the general affairs at home. All three of them may be as young as Tokiyuki, but Suwa assures him that they are people that he can count on. However, Tokiyuki still needs to get to know them and demonstrate that he is capable of making good use of their skills. If the four of them live together, then eventually, Tokiyuki will have a tight-knit relationship with them, and from there, he can recruit more talented individuals as they come across them. This is what Suwa likes to call the beginning of a hero's journey, but none of the others care about his reference. After Suwa has stopped talking, Kojiro asks Tokiyuki if he needs them to do something since they are happy to help him in any way possible. Tokiyuki is glad to hear they want to help him, but he doesn't really know what to have them do, so he ultimately asks to have fun with them by playing tag. However, Kojiro instantly refuses to do it. They've all seen Tokiyuki run, so a game of tag would be nothing but torture for them, but since Tokiyuki wants to have fun, Kojiro suggests that they all sneak into the homes of some of the samurai who betrayed Tokiyuki and take a fat dump on their doorstep. Ayako says she just wants to do push-ups, and Shizuku says she wants to stuff marbles down an anthill. They all have their own unique/disturbing ideas of fun, so Tokiyuki has no idea what to do until Ayako suggests they go hunting as a group. It's fun, it counts as training, and it doesn't involve pooping in anyone's home either, so Tokiyuki is fine with it. But he asks if Shizuku is allowed to go hunting since she's part of the shrine. Fortunately, she says it's not a problem since the god of the shrine is a god of hunting, so unlike other shrines, they hunt and eat meat a lot. After they leave, an attendant heads over to Suwa, while he's grilling some meat to inform him that Tokiyuki and the others have all gone out on a hunting trip. But he already saw that in a vision, as well as the trouble they will face in the forest, but it will be good character development, so he won't interfere. Meanwhile, out in the forest, the group is working together to hunt with Shizuku scaring the rabbit and Tokiyuki being tasked with shooting it, but he sucks at aiming, so he missed a clear shot at the rabbit. Kojiro says that the shot was impressively close, considering the fact that it was Tokiyuki who shot it, so he wants to give him a better line of sight so he can try again. He chops away at the tree branches effortlessly, and once there's a clear line of sight, he tells Tokiyuki to give it another shot, but before he can do so, Ayako frickin' chucks a boulder at the rabbit, and Tokiyuki is horrified by the power she possesses. But this isn't the first time Kojiro has seen Ayako turn a rabbit into a red splat on the ground. However, this time she missed the target, so the rabbit lives to see another day. But that life doesn't last long as it gets chomped by a huge boar. Kojiro has never seen a beast so huge, so Shizuku informs them of a rumor that was going around about a flesh-eating demon boar living in these woods. This is the trouble Suwa foresaw them getting into, but he believes it is important they learn to deal with bloodthirsty beasts because Takagi is far worse than anything they could encounter in that forest. As the demon spots the group, it charges straight at Tokiyuki, so Ayako pulls him to safety while Kojiro fires a shot at it, but the demon's hide is too thick to pierce with his arrows, so he calls for everyone to retreat to high ground. Kojiro doesn't think they can defeat the demon with just the two of them, so he suggests they run away back to the shrine. But Shizuku interrupts and says she thinks they can win this battle. She's conveniently saying this from the safety of a treetop, but she suggests that the others leave Tokiyuki to evade the demon while he leads towards that tree over there. And that's where Kojiro and Ayako will be waiting to take it out. Everyone is on board with the idea, aside from Tokiyuki, who's being used as bait. However, he doesn't have time to protest since the demon has already circled back and is coming after him again. He can't believe his retainers would actively put him in danger, but it's hard to argue with the plan's effectiveness when Tokiyuki is evading the demon so well. While he's leading the demon to the designated spot, Kojiro and Ayako prepare their means of attack, which involves shattering a piece of obsidian at the edge of the cliff, and once the preparations are ready, Tokiyuki asks them what he's supposed to do with the demon. Kojiro fires an arrow at it to face to get it to charge at them instead. As the demon is headed straight for them, they jump out of the way and bait it to ram into the tree and go flying off the side of the cliff, straight onto the obsidian spike. With that, the demon was defeated, and it was honestly a lot easier than Tokiyuki had expected. Once they saw that a bow wouldn't work, they all worked with each other's strengths to take down the demon, but even though it attacked them first, Shizuku still feels bad for it since it was likely a beast from ancient times, and if it had others of its kind around, then maybe it wouldn't have succumbed to evil. After their successful hunt, the team goes to the hot spring to cool off, and Kojiro suggests that the team should meet up here for strategy meetings from now on. Speaking of which, they need to decide on a name for their team, so they start coming up with a bunch of terrible names like the Sweet Tooth Travelers, which Tokiyuki immediately rejects. Their terrible naming sense aside, Tokiyuki is glad to have people like them around since they treat him like a friend to cheer him up, but they also treat him as their lord. Eventually, Ayako comes up with a name that doesn't suck, so from now on they will be known as the Elusive Warriors. After their bath, they all head back to the beast to cook it for dinner, but by the time they get there, Suwa has already completely devoured it somehow. Kojiro yells at Suwa for eating the whole catch, but he tries to justify it by saying the beast had succumbed to evil, so he was just purifying it with his divine stomach, but they aren't falling for his excuse though. Meanwhile, it looks like there's another person who can see visions of the future, and he knows Suwa is plotting something, so he's not going to let him get away with it. This was the end of episode 3. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to not miss the next part.